Okay. So we're recording. We're at chapter 26, and Jen is going to do it because she's good at it.
Okay. So et exierunt ambo, and both of them went out. Sanctus Patricius et Daire, Saint Patrick and Daire, ut considerarent mirabila oblationis et beneplacitum munus, so that they could consider the miraculous offering, literally the miracle of the offering, and the very pleasing gift. Et ascenderunt illum altitudinem terrae, and they went up that height of land. Invenieruntque cervam cum vitulo suo parvo jacente, and they found a doe with her little baby deer calf lying in loco in quo nunc altarius sinistralis ecclesiae in Ard Machai, in the place in which now there is an altar of the church on the left side in Ard Machai. Ot voluerunt comites patrici tenere vitulum et hoc cidere, and the companions of Patrick wanted to have the baby deer and to kill it. Said noluit sanctus, but the saint didn't want them to. Neque permissit, and he didn't permit it. Queen potius ipsum et sanctus tenuit vitulum. No, in fact, rather the saint himself took hold of the calf, the baby deer, portans eum in umeri suis, carrying him on his shoulders. Executa illum cerva, and the deer followed him. Velut mitissima mansuetissima always, like a very gentle and very tame sheep. Usquidum dimiserat vitulum in altero saltu, all the way until he had left the baby deer in another glade. Cito ad aquilonalem, plagam Ard Machai, located to the north direction of Ard Machai. Ubi usque hodie signa quaedam virtutis esse emanentia periti dicunt, where experts say that all the way till today, experts say that certain signs of the miracle are remaining.
Good. Good. So that was 25, in case anyone was confused. I got confused about where we were. But that was the end of 25 in my numbering, right?
That's what I had.
Any thoughts, criticisms? I've muted some people. I can unmute everybody. They were trying to, there's some noise, and there we go. Everyone's quiet. This is good. Good. So I think we just have these miracles, which are so interesting, and clearly, as Larry has said, sort of stressed for us, the whole life of Patrick is in this book of Armagh, which is about why Armagh is what is Armagh now? Is it the prime see? Is it where the Archbishop of Ireland is based?
Yes, so kind of the equivalent of Canterbury in England.
Right. And I guess the claims go back to this period. So it's fun, or important, or interesting. Anybody want to volunteer for 25, or should we just Jen, you want to just keep going?
I'm happy to keep going.
All right.
Virum aliquim valde virum et tamavarum in campo innes habitantem, in tantum stultitiae avoritiaeque incurrisi crimen, periti ferunt, ut, etc. So again, experts say that some man who was very hard and so greedy, a man living in the plain of Innis, they say that he fell in, like literally ran into, but I think we would say maybe fell into such a great crime of stupidity and avarice that ut duos boves carum patrici vehentes alio die post sanctum laborem in pastu agili sui requiescentibus pascentibusque se bovus violenter inconstanter praesente sancto patricio vanus ille homo pervim coegit. That foolish man compelled the two oxen moving the cart of Patrick one day after his holy work, with the cows resting in the pasture of his little plot of land and grazing. That man drove them violently recklessly, with St. Patrick being present, and he did that per whim through violence.
Good. Does everyone get that?
Very nicely done.
Yeah, it's a long, complicated sentence. I don't know. Did you get the parity in line 2? Because I think the smart people or the knowledgeable people say, and I don't know if I need a note on ferunt. This is this use of pharaoh to mean report.
Yeah, that might help.
Yeah, which
always confuses.
Right.
People.
It's totally classical, and so I almost take it for granted. But it is hard if you haven't seen it before. That's why.
When you start trying to translate, and you're like, oh no, the people carry it, and
right. Good. Any other thoughts? I've muted some people, but I should unmute.
Well, I think it's terrible that coagit isn't subjunctive, but I don't know what you're gonna do about it.
No, it's true.
It's wrong.
Right.
I don't know if by that point in the sentence he had just forgotten that he was supposed to be writing a. I don't know. But it has. I mean, it's a result clause in the indicative. So what are you gonna do? Cui irascens Sanctus Patricius cum maledictione dixit, and angry at him, St. Patrick said with a curse, Mudebrod male fecisti. Mudebrod, you have acted badly. Nus quam proficiat tibi ager hictuus, neque semini tuo in aeternum. Nowhere, but that's kind of like never. May this field of yours do you any good, nor do any good for your descendants forever. Jam inutilis erit. Now it will be useless. Et factum est sic, and thus it was done. That's how it happened. Inundatio etenim maris tam habunda eodem veniens die circumluit et operuit totum agrum. For an inundation, a flood of the sea, a really abundant one, coming on the same day, surrounded with water and covered the whole field. This part. Et positus est, juxta prophetae verbum, terra fructifera, in salsuginem amalitia inhabitantis in ea. And so the field was placed, but it's going to turn into something means like was turned into.
Mm-hmm.
Was placed from a, but that's not what the grammar says. So I don't know how you do this and get the grammar right. A fruitful land into a salt marsh by the evilness of the person living in it, according to the saying of the prophet.
Right. So according to the the ager was placed, right?
Yeah.
And then according to the word of the prophet, and then I take it the terra fructifera is kind of in apposition. So it then changes. So it does agree with the subject, but only by being a feminine noun juxtaposed to a masculine nominative noun. And then, in case anyone had any trouble with this, I always find that singular inhabitantis, that by the evil of the singular inhabiting person, that I think I refer to it as like a loaded participle, right? We would expect something like the person who was inhabiting, and when you just have the participle by itself, it's very difficult to spot, I think. I mean, Jen did it easily, but I think it's a very difficult construction for people.
I think Latin in general tends to have so many fewer of these of participles in the oblique cases that aren't, well, at least in the genitive, dative, and ablative, than like Greek does. Greek has them all the time, but Latin, they're not that common.
Well, but maybe that's what makes it harder, right?
You don't practice them.
Right. And so the natural tendencies, you see militia inhabitantis, you say the inhabiting evil, right? And you forget that it's genitive, and you forget that it can be a substantive because it's a participle, and so I should probably put a note on that too. Any other thoughts? Do you want to keep going?
Sure. Arenosa ergo et infructuosa haec, a die qua maledixit eam Sanctus Patricius usque in hodiernum diem. Therefore, this land hike was put in sandy and barren from the day when St. Patrick cursed it all the way until today.
Good.
Can I ask a quick question about positus est?
Sure.
So it's masculine
Mm-hmm.
because of ager,
Yep.
but the last time we saw ager, it was agrum.
Mm-hmm.
So it's referring back to that, but
Right.
I'm struggling with the terra fructifera. I don't understand how that's working.
So I think there are two separate problems that you're pointing to. One is the change from the accusative to the nominative, which I think, Jen, I think this is okay in classical Latin, but I think classical Latin would also do it maybe differently. I would expect maybe a relative pronoun. Totum ager qui positus est.
Yeah.
Right? But Latin can do this, right? You just restate the subject in a different case.
Yeah, it certainly can. It's just hard.
Right. And then there's the second hard thing, which is having done that and switched to the subject of ager, which was positus, you then say, he then says terra fructifera, namely a fruitful land, right? That it's in apposition to the thing that was positus, which makes sense too, right? If you said, this is my friend, an amicus, Maria, right? I mean, it would be wrong, right? But it would be, that's probably a bad example.
It would be something more like this is my friend, a protection, praesidium or something.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Totally changed.
Right, you change gender because, for grammatical reasons, because you've changed the meaning, because you put a different thing in apposition to the nominative.
Okay.
think that's the best we can do. I think this Latin is kind of easy hard, right? It just when you think it's easy, something hard comes along, but then just when you think it's hard, you can start reading it. So there's something to be said for it, other than being interesting.
I think it's interesting that this land that ought to be fertile is so close to the sea that it can be inundated.
Mm-hmm.
It appears to be some kind of wetland that he had drained.
Right.
It's a little. What?
Or that's wetland now, and presumably it's wetland when Murchie was writing.
Yes.
But the story would be once these were fertile fields.
Now, what year was Murchie writing in again? What years?
700-ish.
Okay, that's before the medieval warm period. So you're probably not going to see any rising seas. There are legends, especially I think in Scotland, especially in northern England, of submerged towns.
Oh yeah.
You know, where the sea rose and took them over. So I wonder if this is perhaps an early example of that.
It doesn't have to be connected with a real event, though. All you need from Murchie is say, look at this piece of crappy land.
Yeah.
Right.
Look at this wetland.
Thanks.
Look at this marsh. Yeah.
Right. I, of course, want to go on a field trip and find out which particular piece of land this is, and look over it and think about this passage. But I don't know that it's
fog it might be. Yes.
Okay. 27.1. Greg, do you want to?
Okay. Itaque volente domino patrici audita dicam totius Iberniae episcopi doctorisque egregi de virtutibus pauca pluribus in arare conabor. And so, God willing, I will try to say a little about the many virtues of Patrick, the excellent bishop and doctor or teacher of all Hibernia, God willing.
Good.
Quodam igitur tempore cum tota Britannia incredulitatis augure regescerat, cuiusdam regis egregia filia qui nomen erat Monesan, Spiritus Sancti repleta auxilio, cum quidam eius expederit amplexos conjugalis non adquievit, neque cum aquarum multis irrigata esset undis, ad id quod nolebat et deterius erat, compelli potuit. So at that time, or so at a certain time, when all of Britain stiffened in the chill of disbelief.
Good.
The excellent daughter of a certain king, whose name was Monesan, the daughter, not the king, filled with the auxilio, with the help or with the grace of the Holy Spirit, when anyone sought conjugal embrace, and I think we all know what that is, non adquievit, she didn't consent, and not even when waterboarded, it looks like, not even irrigated with many waves of water. Ad id quod nolebat et deterius erat compelli potuit. And she could not be compelled, she could not be forced to what she did not will and what was wrong.
Right. What was a bad thing, worse, literally worse, but obviously what was a bad thing, what was rather bad, right?
Yes.
Remember, the comparative can be rather bad as well as worse. It doesn't have to be a true comparative. So yeah, there's a lot that I find puzzling about this. Partly the exaggeration of all of Britain suddenly being pagan, right? That's a pretty sweeping statement, given that there's a vibrant English church for 300 years at this point. Well, there'd been a vibrant church for a couple of hundred years in Patrick's day, right? So it seems sort of strange. The quidam, that cum quidam eos expeterat ax plexus conjugalis, you get that amplexus conjugalis is actually accusative plural, which is tricky. And the quidam is probably when a certain person was seeking her conjugal embraces. She didn't want to agree. So I don't think it was when anyone did it. It was just one person said, I want to marry this woman. And she said, no, no, no. And then there seems to be an actual academic division of opinion about what this water is. So one opinion is really that she was being drenched with water as a kind of way to make her come round, as you say, exactly like waterboarding. But I found there's a 19th century commentator, Hogan, understands it as a very exaggerated, is basically floods of tears, which I think makes much more sense, that even though she was drenched with waves of water, right, even though she was in floods of tears, she couldn't be compelled. So I don't know which is right. The idea that you waterboard your daughter seems harsh.
It seems unlikely to me as well. I mean, this is not Italy. It's
Where they did
Renaissance
waterboard their
era
daughter?
Italy. This is late pagan Ireland, Iron Age Ireland.
Right.
And, there's a lot of, and some of it, and we may be misinterpreting it and things like that, but women in the British Isles had considerably more power, married or unmarried, than women in Rome. So waterboarding, someone like a Juliet type, I could see.
Yeah.
But an Irish girl who just doesn't want to get married, not so much. That just doesn't seem.
Well, she's British, but never mind.
No, but it doesn't matter. It's a Celtic Brittonic culture.
Right. It seems
That is, much more, not I wouldn't say pro-woman, but it's much more balanced than it's
Right.
not as patriarchal as the Mediterranean.
right. It seems very
Might not depend on who the suitor's father was, what he was king of, and what power may have accrued to her father by an alliance of marriage.
Well, yes, I mean, they're still doing alliances just like they are in the Mediterranean. I'm not saying they're not, but the woman has to consent. That's the thing, is it's not, and she has to do so pretty freely. I mean, she's part of the alliance and making the alliance happen. I mean, she is in Italy too, but she has to be a lot more subtle about it. So you don't want to torture your daughter into a really important political alliance, because she's not going to be doing her job when she gets married of pleading your cause with this king that she's married to.
Did you
Or
see
at
the
all,
note?
I'd like to say, right? Why would you want to torture your daughter at all?
Well, people did.
Did they? Did they really torture their daughters I mean, that seems. I wonder if there are real parallels for that. I mean, it just seems. I can see shutting them in a castle and having them cry. Right.
There's all sorts of hagiography.
Sorry.
Yeah,
There's all sorts
the
of
hagiography is full of it.
Where some, it's really popular for Diocletian's
Yeah.
Mhm.
persecution, for stories to come out of that period where some Roman wants to marry his daughter off, and she refuses, and then she gets tortured and paraded around naked, and
Saint Lucy and Saint Cecilia, perhaps.
Maybe.
yeah, Saint Cecilia is one, Saint Julian is another, where we have these kinds of stories.
Yeah. I just don't remember them being tortured by their parents.
Okay, well, I mean, Reformation Scotland. There's a really ugly 17th or 18th century ballad from Scotland, in which the girl wants to marry a young piper or something who's beneath her station, and the parents beat her, and then the brother picks her up and throws her down on a stone so that her back is broken and she dies.
Oh.
And
And
this
you're
is,
doubting they might waterboard her?
yeah. I mean, there's now the violence is obviously, you know, in ballads is somewhat exaggerated, but it does reflect that basically if a girl is resistant to getting married during certain periods and certain areas, yeah, beating is completely
Yeah, I can imagine beating. The waterboarding just seems weird to me. But I'd want to know if there were parallels and
Yeah.
whatever.
the paterfamilias
Somebody
thing is unlikely.
Somebody just posted a question about could this be connected to the Synod of Whitby, which I don't have
Yeah, I
any
saw that.
idea, but
Right. And there was a huge dispute over the dating of Easter. Maybe Murchu might have been a little more opinionated about them.
It's about Murchu's period. It's not really St. Patrick's period.
Right. Right. I'm not sure if that helped. Does that help the waterboarding of the daughter problem?
I don't think so.
I'm not sure what you mean, Samantha.
The day of Easter.
Yeah.
I think
Anyway, let's go on. There's more tears or more water in a minute.
Nam illa cum interverbera et aquarum irrigationes solita esset interrogare matram et nutritium utrum conpertum aberrant rotae factorum, qua totus illuminatur mundus et cum responsum acciperat per quod vinculo copularetur luculentissimo spiritus sancti concilio illustrata dicebat ne quaquam itaque hoc faciam.
Mm-hmm.
Or she, when between the whip and the irrigation of water, if it's tears, between the whip and the tears, or between the whip and the waterboard, depending.
Right. Plural whips, by the way, right?
Whips, yeah, the whippings.
Uh-huh.
Solita esset interrogare matram et utrum compert. Might be a loan to.
Oh, so she was accustomed. Soleo.
She was accustomed. So between being whipped and
Right.
and waterboarded, her
Right.
custom was to ask her mother and nurse whether
Whether haberent, whether they
might have the creator of the heavenly sphere,
yes.
qua totus, by which the whole world, or qua totus illuminatur mundus,
Pardon me.
by which the whole world is lit.
Right.
I
Whether they
suppose
might-
she means the sun.
yes, I think so. So when
Et cum responsum acciperat, and when she received an answer, per quod compertum haberet solus factorum esse cum eam qui caelum sedis est, that the through which they might have who they might hold the maker to be. Is
when she received an answer through which, or I guess according to which answer, she, presumably she, either the mother or the nurse had, so compertum haberet means something like they knew, right? Whether they had it discovered. So the first question was, have you had it discovered, right? That's what she asked them. And then the mother or the nurse says as an answer that per quod, I had it a minute ago, when she received an answer
According to which,
according to which that this person had it discovered that the creator of the sun was him to
to whom
whom,
the heavenly throne.
yes, to whom literally heaven was the throne, right? It's another one of those appositional things. So in other words, when she heard as an answer that the person who was the creator of the sun was basically was God. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mhm.
So the pair quad is introducing an indirect question.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Okay.
I thought that the subject of Habirat was the girl.
And
When she got an answer through which she learned that.
okay, so she was in the habit of asking her mother and nurse whether they knew
Mhm.
who was the creator of the sun. And when she received as a response,
What a very convoluted way to say this.
right,
So,
that
and
she knew. But how would that be the response?
And she would
The
receive.
mother,
Well,
the mother and nurse would have to be Christian to give her the response that would.
Right, and maybe they are. Maybe that's not a problem.
They're not frozen in the grip of cold unbelief.
Right, maybe it's,
Even though it's a little ice age, probably.
Well, we have a pretty lively church scene in the United States, but there are plenty of churches where it would not be at all surprising to hear the preacher say, "This whole country is atheist."
right. Good point. Yes, it's clearly an exaggeration. So yes, so I think so. Maybe she's asking the mother and the nurse who made the sun, and they said, "Well, yes, it's God." So let's keep going because I've kind of forgotten what happens next.
Get surprised all over again.
Yeah, it's always a revelation.
Do the magic.
So
Cum acta esset frequenter ut coniugali vinculo copularetur, luculantissimo Spiritus Sancti concilio illustrata dicebat. When
cum acta.
when pressured
Mhm.
to be joined in the conjugal chains,
Mhm. Then illustrata,
illuminated by the brilliance of the Holy Spirit.
Mhm. Yes, and if the emendation is right, by the most brilliant advice of the Holy Spirit, concilio, luculentissimo concilio Spiritus Sancti. So illuminated by the most bright counsel, or some word like that, of the Holy Spirit.
Good counsel is one of the gifts of the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dicebat, she said, by no means will I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Quaerebat namque per naturam totius creaturae factorum. Or she was seeking the maker of all natural creatures, she was seeking the maker through the nature of all creatures, seeking the creator and the created, in other words.
I think Totius Creaturae goes with factorem. She was seeking through nature the creator of all of creation. right.
In hoc patriarchae Abraham secuta exemplum, following in this the example of the patriarch Abraham.
Right. Good. And no one seems to know exactly what that's a reference to, unless it's the
Question mark.
passage that I've got in the notes that I got from Beeler. So going back to what she said to her mother and nurse, do we think that have we decided that the mother and nurse were Christians, that she said to them, I mean, this makes sense to me. She said to them, if she's in a Christian family, she says, who made the sun? And they said, well, yes, daughter, God made the sun. And so
That's how she learned it.
Christian faith, she says, well, in that case, I'm not marrying no lousy boy. Right? because that's not what we do. Right?
And the logic is just impeccable.
Thank you. I think there are, I mean, I need to go back over this. Certainly in the quote authentic saints' lives, the actual martyr acts of the 4th century, early third and 3rd century, there is this tendency to point to creation, right? And I think it goes back to the mother of the Maccabees, who points to heaven and says, if God is, if the heavens are there, then God is true, and therefore I can't renounce my faith. And they do have this basic way of invoking nature, the beauty, especially the beauty of the heavens. I don't remember them invoking the sun, but that makes perfect sense too.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think the logic works is that, because according to most European mythologies, right, the heavens of the earth are gods or goddesses and just kind of appear out of nothingness. Mm-hmm. And so the argument is that you have this divine figure who creates the heaven and the earth, and once you admit that, that trumps everything else.
Right.
Actually, they don't appear out of nothingness.
Well,
they appear out of watery chaos, which is itself a primordial deity.
Right. But
That's
Larry's point is a pagan would say that's the God up there in the sky, and a Christian would say that's a creation of God up there in the sky.
Depends on what pagan belief you're talking about. Not all pagans believe in a tripartite universe where the gods are up in the sky, and then there are phonic deities down below and things like that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it as a polemical point. I thought it was just like, I look at the sun and I think God is true, right? A Christian could say that. A Christian could say that now, right? If you celebrate the glory of the universe and then you say, well, who made that? That's God. But I actually like Larry's point that it's kind of it is kind of an anti-pagan thing, don't you think? If a pagan thought, surely some pagans thought the sun was God.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Possibly even Celtic pagans.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The cult of Minerva Solis in Britain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a lot of syncretism between, especially in England, between British religion and Roman religion.
Right. But it seems I think this is Larry's point, it seems very Christian to say this is the creator we're talking about, rather than the sun itself.
Well, she's also appealing to a higher authority.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you look at the martyrologies as well that you just mentioned about the 3rd and 4th century, these girls, by defying their parents, specifically their father, they're defying the paterfamilias, they're defying the state. And the early Christianity is saying, no, there's a higher power than that you must obey.
Right.
And so they're sort of invoking a higher power than their dad.
Yeah. In fact, I remember now. So Perpetua, way back in the beginning of the 3rd century, he points to a jug. She's got a jug in her hand, and she says, "Who made this?" And and she says, "It's God who made this. So you can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me to marry this guy."
Yeah.
It's the same thing, I think. Okay. Paula,
Okay.
27.2.
Yep. Okay. Parentes eos inito concilio a Deo sibi tributo. Tributo?
Mhm.
Okay. Her parents, I don't know if this was this the grammar's tortured in this or if I tortured it, but forgive me if I
Did you waterboard
read
it?
the letter. Yeah, I think I waterboarded it. From the beginning, by the council or order of God with her tribute, or with her trials.
By,
Her trial?
by means of the council. Wait, I've got a whole note on this. Having begun, the plan having been begun, the plan having been begun, having been commenced, the plan that was given to them by God. So with the plan having been given to them, tributo sibi, to them by God, the plan having been begun.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. I wasn't sure how everything was supposed to,
Right.
be connecting together here.
Right.
I mean,
And
there was
I don't
an awful
like-
lot of ablative, and it was like,
Right. I don't like my note on that either. So if that makes you feel any better.
oh, okay,
I
good.
don't know why it would.
I was confused,
No.
regardless of the note.
Okay.
Audito patricio viro ab aeterno Deo visitari septimo semper die. Having heard the man Patrick
Mhm.
by the eternal God was visited always on the seventh day.
Yeah, I think a man from the eternal God, right? A man sent by, maybe.
Now, it's interesting because I was confused. I looked up a translation. It said he was visited by the eternal God every seventh day.
Well, yeah, sure, visitari is the
Sure, if
plural.
you said mass.
Passive.
Mhm.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but I'm just
No,
wondering if
I think that one works too. Having been visited by, that he was visited by. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Let me just see what I have Hood right here, just in case.
Yeah, no, I think Paulo's right.
Yeah. So he's visited by, yes, visited by the eternal God. And as you say, right, every Sunday, God visits. Wow, you know what this is?
What?
It's somebody somewhere, like Joyce or one of Joyce's friends says something like about the Irish, you have to understand that every Sunday they see wine turned into God's blood there before their very eyes. Of course it's a mystical country, right? That they take the Mass very seriously. So that makes total sense.
I was just thinking of this Craig Ferguson line from one of his stand-ups where he keeps talking about how the biscuit really does become Jesus. I'm like, thank God I'm Episcopalian. I don't have to sweat that.
I don't know about Craig Ferguson. Look him up.
But he's talking about the literal transmutation. And
Yeah. Right.
People get tied in the knots over that.
Right. Okay, thank you. Good.
Okay, so my translation back up. Scoticas partes cum filia. I guess patentes wasn't in there originally.
Right.
Okay. So into or to the Scottish region. Now, take it we're going to Ireland here. So the region of the Scots, maybe.
Right.
The Scotish. The
Right.
Scots
And remember,
from Ireland.
peto can mean seek. So seeking the Scottish regions with their father. With their daughter.
Daughter. Yeah. Knocked on the door of Patrick. Well, is this like a Shay Patrick kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's just the direct object. They literally knocked up Patrick, as the English would say. Right.
I was just so hesitant to say that because
We have an audience of 2 people. We can say whatever we want.
that's true. But still, it's just so unfortunate. I didn't want to slap that, but yeah, I mean, it does. That is literally pretty much what it means. Let's hit up Patrick here.
Right.
Hey, hit up Patrick. That's a good.
Yeah. Okay. Quem tanto labore quaesitum repererunt.
Mhm.
Who, with so much work desired?
Sought, sought,
So much work sought. Okay, yeah.
Quairo.
Sought. Yeah.
sought with so much work.
Okay. They discovered.
Right.
They found. Yeah. Qui ilos novicios percunctari coepit. Who, he began to question those newly arrived ones.
Mhm.
Now, I'm wondering, it's probably too early for novicios to really mean novitiates.
Right.
But
I
I'm
don't
wondering if that's where it derives from, this kind of usage early in the hagiographies.
Well, Hogan, again, reading this very old commentary, actually has two possible Celtic, what would we call words that the Novicios is modified. So there's a word nuachor, or however you pronounce it, which means newcomer in Irish. And he thinks that, or he suggests that maybe that's why Murchie uses this rather weird Latin word.
So he's basically doing like a literal translation from the Irish that he normally uses?
I guess so. That's I'm
Maybe
not,
influenced by it.
right, influenced by it somehow. That's why he comes to that word.
Well, yeah. Obviously, if somebody's natural or native tongue is a vernacular
right.
that's not Latinate, you're going to get some weird stuff.
But there is, I think there is no classical Latin word that Novicius is. I mean, Novicius is not a classical Latin word, as far as I can tell.
No.
So you're right.
So it's okay. So it's a borrowed word.
It is. It's a classical word.
Novicius.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought it was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in Varro. It's in Plautus. It's in.
Okay.
Let's see. There's a Cicero reference. Terence,
It's the
Pliny.
Oh,
Mhm.
it's the usage here, I think, that's new rather than the actual word.
right.
Yeah.
Right. It's an extension of the classical. Yes, I'm just reading my own note, which would mean that in classical Latin it means newly purchased or new, and in medieval Latin it means newly arrived. So it's a perfectly reasonable extension, but I think what Hogan is suggesting is that it's pushed by this Irish word that I don't know anything about. Okay.
Okay. Tunc ili viatores clamare caperunt et dicere. Thence the travelers began to shout to him and say, or shout at him and say, Cupidissimi filiae videndi deum causa. By the cause of the seeing vision of the most desired daughter.
Okay, so remember that there's this use of causa. This is a classical Latin use with a genitive, especially a genitive and a gerundive. So
Right.
for the sake of a daughter who is really desirous, right? That so it's cupidissimi filiae causa, sake of a daughter who's really desirous, and then the really desirous, depending on that, is videndi deum, a sake of a daughter really desirous of seeing
God.
God.
Okay. Coacti ad te venire facti sumus. Forced to come to you, we are made. That was so Yoda.
Oh, that does say, or we have been made forced to come to you. We have been made
and forced and made.
and forced. We've been made forced. That's really awkward.
A little perilous. I know. I'm telling you, this stuff got tortured before I ever cooked the waterboard.
Absolutely. Right. No, it should be just coacti sumus. We've been compelled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, tunc ille repletus spiritus sancto elevavit vocem suam et dixit ad eam. Then he, full of the Holy Spirit, lifted up his voice and said to her, "Si in Deo credis." So you believe in God.
Right.
That is just so casual after all this, lead up. Et ait credo. And she said, "I believe."
Mm-hmm.
Tunc sacro spiritus et aquae lavacro eam lavit. Thence, with a bath of the Holy Spirit,
Mm-hmm.
or bathed with the Holy Spirit, he bathed, and water, he bathed her.
Right. It's a really weird kind of, it's almost poetry, right? He
Yeah.
her in the bath, in the sacred bath of the Holy Spirit and of water, which kind of sums up baptism very nicely, but kind of grammatically seems a little awkward.
It's kind of grammatically, it's kind of messy.
Might be a
Nice contrast with the waterboarding.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's nice water. It's good
Yeah.
water. Except, of course, what happens
It's
next.
true. I don't know if you were being facetious, but it seems to me that
Exactly. Yeah.
does make sense, that it's an ironic, it's good water versus bad water.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful little phrase. It's a nice chiasmus, and
Uh-huh.
I think it's very nice.
Is it hendiadys? I can never remember the
I mean, if the water and the spirit are like two aspects of the spirit, and
yeah.
not acts of
Yeah.
two separate.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So
isn't that part of the baptismal liturgy?
Early on in the liturgy,
Mhm.
confirmation, which was giving the Holy Spirit, took place at the same time as baptism, and it still does in the Eastern churches. But in the West, they separated in time. Children were baptized, confirmed when they were in their teens, and that's usually the practice now in the Western church. But here, I think, because even in the Acts of the Apostles, Paul comes across people who are baptized, and the apostles say, "Have you received the Holy Spirit?" And they haven't, hadn't even heard of it. And then there's a laying on of hands, and they're doing all the things that happen when you receive the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues, prophesying, all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, some Protestant churches actually delay the baptism to the age of confirmation and then dunk you in wholesale in the water. So,
I guess my question is whether I should know this. Is the Holy Spirit particularly what's happening at baptism? You're baptized in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit,
Yes.
right?
yes.
So it doesn't say, "I baptize you in water, the Holy Spirit has now arrived."
Yes,
No, but-
because think of the original version. It's John the Baptist is baptizing everyone in the river.
Right.
And Jesus comes down to be baptized, and John keeps saying, "Oh no, I can't do that." And he's like, "No, I got to be a role model here." And so as soon as he dunks him in, the dove,
The
which
dove,
is the Holy
right.
Spirit, comes down from God and says, "This is my
Right.
son, Jim, whom I am
Right.
well pleased."
Right.
So yeah,
So
the Holy
the
Spirit
Holy
comes
Spirit
down when you're baptized.
It would make total sense to me that the Holy Spirit was like important at baptism.
Yeah. Well, I think this actual phrase comes from John. I think it's the 3rd chapter where Jesus is talking to Nicodemus, and he talks about no one is able to be born again except from water and the Spirit.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Yeah.
I like that.
I mean, that certainly ties into the
Yeah.
baptism that Paula was just talking about.
Right.
I
think
mean,
that's-
you also have it. I think it's Acts where you have, it's not Epiphany, Pentecost, when
Right.
everyone is speaking in tongues because the Holy Spirit has come down and filled them.
Right.
And
but they're not being
they're-
baptized there. That's the
there.
what was
point.
that?
No, they're already baptized. No.
Were they? Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, but it all makes sense. Okay, keep going, Paul.
Okay. Let's see. Nec mora, postea solo prostrata. Without delay, afterward, prostrate on the ground, fallen to the ground.
Mhm.
Spiritum in manus angelorum tradidit. Her spirit, or the spirit, passed into the hands of the angels.
She Trado is
He handed over his spirit.
right.
Or handed over her
Her
spirit. Okay. Ubi moritur ibi et adunatur,
Mhm,
where she died and there she was buried.
mhm,
Tunc Patricius prophetavit quod, then Patrick prophesied that post annos viginti, after 20 years, corpus ilius ad propinquam cellulam de illo loco toleretur omni honore. Her body to a neighboring cell or chamber from that place would be brought with all honor.
mhm,
Quod postea ita factum est, that afterwards it was so done.
mhm.
Cuius transmarinae reliquiae ibi adorantur usque hodie. Her relics across the sea there are adored unto this day.
Hello.
Yes, her
Oh, that's a pretty cat.
foreign relics. Right.
She thinks so too.
I'm sure she does. This is an orange version.
Oh my God. Okay.
She still thinks she's a kitten.
Good. Any thoughts so far? We kind of rushed through after Greg's thing too. Anyone got any residual problems or questions?
I think this is a pretty harsh conclusion.
What? The dying
Dude.
thing?
Yeah, she just dropped it. I mean, I know the whole thing. Oh, but she went straight to heaven, so it's okay. But I mean, her parents must have been like,
Maybe less waterboarding, more nurturing.
yeah,
Last
maybe a
time
little
we
less
take them.
hyperthermia.
So bad.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, it's like
That's a big cat. Maybe
she's
it's
not
just
really
right up.
small, but she's
No,
she's
I
grown
meant
a lot.
Larry's cat is kind of.
Oh, Larry's cat.
Or
Yes.
just very close to the camera.
She's actually very
Anyway.
tiny. She's less than
Aw.
5 pounds.
Oh,
No.
Aw.
Years.
just
I'm
no
sorry we never had mass competitive cats, but
There's always next summer.
probably just as well. Yes, next summer. All right, Victoria, you want to go on? Chapter 28?
One teeny little thing before we go on, because I always point this out to my kids. The neck mora, and translating it like as without delay, it's fine. It's just I always want people to be really clear. It's not ablative. It's nominative. You have to supply something like erat. So nor was there a delay. So without delay is perfectly colloquial English. It's just it's nominative.
I always knew that it was nominative. I feel now that you've said it that I knew that.
It's one of those things that I'm always like, did you really know? So I always stop my kids and I'm like, did you really know?
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of awkward. It's like Sina Mora, but it's neck Mora, and it's like, yeah.
Right.
Well, that's great. One coming up too.
All right, chapter 28, Victoria.
Dominici et apostolici patrici, quius mentionem facimus, quadem miraculum mirificae gestum. I think I'm going to have to go clear to the end. Quad A in carne ad hoc stanti et Stefano pene tantum contigisse legitur brevi retaxem relatu. So let me now recapitulate with brief narrative, with brief telling, a certain wondrously done miracle, quadam miraculum mirificae gestum, of the lordly and bishop-ish Patrick, of whom we are now making mention, of whom we make mention. This still isn't going to work, but about all of that whom it is said, contigisse, it is said that something happened, quad, to him in the flesh, standing there, and also to Stephen, and to those two almost uniquely. So,
Wait, where's them two almost uniquely?
well, sorry. it happened to him and to Stefan,
Yes.
flesh, standing there almost uniquely, like it almost happened to nobody else. And it is said to have impacted them, this thing, quad, I'm hoping.
What would happen? Let me see if we take it word by word, which is hard to do, I grant you, of lordly and apostolic Patrick, of whom we have made mention, that a certain miracle was done wonderfully, which to him standing so far in the flesh and to Stephen, there you are, practically only to Stephen is said to have happened, I will retell in a short report. Did that make sense? And was it right by any chance?
I wrote this sentence down in the
Yeah.
margin. I switched it around and I got a certain miracle of the lordly and apostolic Patrick, of whom we make mention, and going back now to the miracle,
Right.
remarkably performed, which it is read to have happened to him, still being into the flesh, and almost only to St. Stephen, like they're the only ones.
Right.
I will reweave or retell in a brief narration.
Right. That worked really well. That sounded really good.
Because I had to take it apart, then you put it back together.
Right.
That's the best part. It's like a puzzle.
Yeah. I should probably rewrite the whole sentence. It's fun doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the person number 10 smooth voice of Retaksam.
I do think it's a future and not a first person subjunctive.
Mhm.
Okay.
Because you did it as let me, which is,
Right.
I mean, it could be. It could be. It's just, I think, much more common to say, I will do it.
Okay.
I agree.
Does Retexo usually take the ablative?
It takes the accusative. It's with, the object of it is the quaddam miraculum mirificae gestum.
Oh, yes.
Why you have to, like, go back to the beginning of the sentence, which is why this is,
Description.
and yeah, relatu is an ablative means. I'm going to retell it by means of.
A short story. All right.
Okay. Quodam autem tempore, cum orationis causa ad locum solitum per nocturna spacia procederet, consueta celi vidit miracula. So, and at a certain time, when on account of prayer, he proceeded to the accustomed place through the space of night, which through the nocturnal space.
Right.
He saw the accustomed miracle of heaven.
Miracles.
Miracles of heaven.
Mhm.
Suamque carissimum ac fidelem probare volens sanctum puerum dixit. And wishing to test the dearest and faithful holy lad, boy, said, O fili mi, dic mihi quae so, si sentis ea quae sentio. O my boy, tell me, my son, tell me, I entreat or I seek, if you sense those things which I sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Quaiso just means please.
Mm-hmm.
Please
Literally, it does mean I entreat you, but this is the standard word for please.
tell me, please. Do you see what I see? A star, oops, sorry. Tunc parvulus nomine Beninus in cunctanter dixit. Then the little boy, whose name was Beninus, without hesitation said, Iam mihi cognita ea quae sentis. Those things are known to me which you sense, which you perceive. Nam video caelum apertum et filium Dei et angelos eas. For I see the heavens opening and the Son of God and his angels. Tunc Patricius dixit, iam te meum successorum dignum esse sentio. And Patrick said, now I perceive that you are worthy to be my successor.
Mm-hmm.
Necmora, without delay, immediately. That's nominative, right? Necmora gradu concito ad suetam locum orationis pervenire. So without delay, with quick step, to the accustomed place of prayer, they went, and I'm going, they went because the note says so. His ergo orationibus in medio fluminis alvel, parvulus dixit. Therefore, with prayers in the middle channel of the river, the little boy said.
With them praying.
With them
Right,
praying.
absolute, while they were praying in the middle channel of the river.
Do you have orantibus?
Uh-huh.
I have orationibus.
Oh. I think I may have, maybe I fixed it. I think it's definitely Antibus.
Okay, so with them praying in the middle channel of the river, the little boy said, "Iam algorem aquaticum sustinere non potem." I'm not able to withstand the cold water, to put up with the cold water.
Mm-hmm.
Nam e aqua nimis erat frigida, for the water was too cold for him.
Mm-hmm.
Dixit e Patricius ut de superiore loco ad inferiorem descenderit. Then Patrick said to him that he should come down from the higher place to the lower. Nihilomenus ibi diu per stare and non in parens potuit. Nonetheless, notwithstanding, he was not able to stay there for a long time. But I'm not seeing that non making sense with the next bit. Nam se aquam calidam sensisse testabatur. For he testified, or he said, that he felt the water to be hot.
Exactly. So what's the problem?
Well, I mean, it's a miracle.
Right, the water's changed temperature. It's gone from very cold to very hot.
But he still can't stand it.
Right, because now it's very hot.
Okay, all right.
Like my old bathroom.
Tunc ille non sustinens in eo loco dio stare, terram ascendit. So then that boy, unable to stand, not sustaining, not enduring, to stand long in that spot, climbed up on the land.
Yes.
So the miracle is first he was too cold, then he was too hot.
He really didn't want to pray much, did he?
Yeah, I think that's not.
The story doesn't seem to have much point, does it?
No. This is why I wanted snakes.
Right, exactly.
I read about the snake, where the snake legend came in. It's way later. And there's some totally random explanation for it.
Isn't it that he drove the druids out?
What,
The pagans, yeah, the pagans were like the snakes or something.
Oh. I never heard that.
I just made it up.
Okay. But that story seems to be much less satisfying as a miracle story. I mean, because you sort of want something to happen to the kid, like that's
Right.
good. Like, but maybe he just realizes that life is tough.
My, we're getting bloodthirsty here. Was something happening?
Children.
Lots of Israel out on the ground. And then Patrick would put them back together.
I'd assumed it was going to be a story about the boy lying at first, and I was surprised when nothing happened.
Right.
Like, oh, he's saying he notices it too, but Patrick's going to show him up now. Like, oh yeah, you're right.
But
Are there hot springs in Ireland?
What happened to St. Stephen?
Sorry, what?
Well, it says that this happened to Patrick and Stephen, but I don't recall this ever.
The heavens opening
Stephen.
and seeing the Son of God for the last thing that Stephen said before the rock started to fall.
All right.
Was the heaven? Was the sky?
I see the heavens open and the Son of God coming.
Down. Yeah.
Ah,
But he didn't get to escape and
Yeah.
crawl away, like crawl up on
No,
the dry land or something.
No, he.
No, he got stoned to death.
He got stung.
that actually reminds me of my one just grammatical point in the middle of that paragraph. Nam video caelum apertum is literally, I see that the sky is open,
Mhm.
right? Not the opening of the sky, just in case anyone's confused. So I see the open sky and the Son of God and his angels. Okay, good. One more paragraph and then we're done.
That's it. Another. Oh no, go ahead.
And well, for what it's worth, the de superiori loco ad inferiorum, it means, I assume it would mean upstream to down. You can use superior. and inferior to
okay.
mean that. So that is, I assume, what he's saying. Like, it must be, loco is okay, I guess. I was wondering whether it actually is alweo. I don't understand with it, but in any case, that's how you say upstream and downstream.
Yeah,
Is superior and inferior.
that makes sense. I was wondering if it was shallower and deeper and shallower, but
Mhm.
Well, I mean, it's certainly one thing it does mean in Latin. Phaedrus uses it that way. The story about the wolf and the lamb, where the wolf is looking for a cause for the quarrel, and he says, "Oh, well, you made the water foul," and the lamb says, "Well, how could I do that when I was standing downstream?" Great story.
yeah, good. All right, chapter 29, Mona.
The last one.
Yeah.
Chapter 29. Quoram mirabile gestum partici non transibo silentio. I will not pass over a certain marvelous deed, maybe we could say miracle, of Patrick in silence. Quic nuntiatum est nequissimum opus cuius tam regis Britannici nomine corrictic in Fausti Cudelisque tyranni. To this man, I think that means Patrick, the most worthless work of a certain British king, Regis Britannici, named Corrictic, an unfortunate and cruel tyrant, was reported. So it was reported to this man, to Patrick. Hic namque erat maximus interfectorque persecutor Christianorum. For surely this man, being Corrictic, was a very great killer and persecutor of Christians. Patricius autem per epistolam ad viam veritatis veritatem tavit. Patrick, however, attempted through a letter to recall him to the way of truth. Cuius salutaria deridebat monita. He, Corrictic, kept deriding, or used to deride, the salutary or the salvation warnings of this Patrick. Cum autem ista nuntiarentur Patricio oravit Dominum et dixit. When, however, these things were reported to Patrick, he prayed to the Lord and said, Domine, si fieri potest, expelle hunc perfidum de praesenti saeculoque futuro. Lord, if it is able to happen or to occur, expel this treacherous man from the present and future ages. Non grande postea tempus effluxerat, and afterwards no great time had passed or had maybe slipped by. Et musicam artem audivit arcoram cantari, and Corrictic, or he, heard a musical performance to be sung by a certain man.
Good.
Quod cito de solio regali transieret, that he being Corrictic, that he would soon pass from the royal throne.
Good.
Omnisque carissimi eius viri in hunc proruperum, producerunt vocem. And all of his very dear men, I'm thinking that that's the king, burst forth in this voice. They kind of chimed in. Tunc ille cum essit in medio foro, and then that man corrected. When he was in the middle of the forum, here comes the miracle. Illico vulpeculae miserabiliter adepta forma. Illico, like on the spot, then and there. The appearance of a little fox having been miserably assumed or acquired. Profectus in suorum praesentia ex illo die illaque hora velut fluxus aquae transiens nusquam comparquit. He departed, or he ran away, in the presence of his own men from that day and hour, like a flowing of water, a flux of water passing by. He appeared nowhere, or he never appeared again.
Absolutely.
To say. So that's kind of cool.
Yes, who knew he would turn into a fox?
To a fox.
I was not ready for that.
And some of the miracles, that doesn't sound like such a bad thing after all, you know?
Well, I'm sure it's less fun than being a tyrant.
Right. Not such a bad.
All right. We're done.
That's cool. Thanks. This was great.
Thanks, everybody. It's been a great summer.
Right.
Sorry we didn't get to the real Patrick. And
He eludes us. He's that's his way of drawing us in.
he is available in a perfectly good source chrétien edition. If anybody wants to read his Latin is very strange. But maybe we can do that next summer or something else, or who knows what
Anything.
future will bring. But anyway, thanks a lot, Jen, and thanks a lot, Larry. And
Thanks, everybody.
the rest of you.
Thank you.
Great seeing you. And if you're ever in Philadelphia, come by. Especially Greg, are you going to be in town? Are you going to visit?
I should be before too long.
Well, if you come to visit your son, just drop by and we can have some coffee or something.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Anyway, good
Go
night.
quietly tacit us.
Sorry.
Shall I just go quietly tacit us?
Test.
Oh,
That was bad.
That was talking.
Oh boy.
It doesn't get any nerdier than that joke.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Okay, see you guys. Bye. Bye. Same time, same station.
Right.